Joining me from Texas to discuss the DPRK's latest weapons test is Rodger Baker. He's a senior vice president of strategic analysis at Stratfor, a U.S.-based intelligence firm. Rodger, tell us about this. These are described as new tactical guided weapons. What do you make of this?
Well, what we've seen from this is that these are relatively short range, but the interesting thing was that they're also relatively low altitude. So this is in part why the South Koreans also think these are a new type of missile, and it may be a missile that's designed in some ways to counteract the THAAD system that the U.S. has set up in South Korea to respond to potential North Korean missile launches.
So how worrying would this be to the U.S. and South Korea, do you think?
I think in some ways it's not tremendously worrying. It's a slow, steady testing of new weapon systems by the North Koreans. But in some ways it does demonstrate a continued development of capability and ways that North Korea is working to try to counteract some of the new technologies that the United States and the South Koreans are deploying on the peninsula.
Rodger, talk about timing, because this happens while the U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton was in Seoul. He's known for his rather hawkish views with respect to the DPRK. What do you make of that?
Well, I'd say that you want to think of two different things in the timing here. One is the political message, which may be in regards to reminding the United States that the North Koreans are supposedly going to be going into talks with the U.S. and they see these as being very slow, and also reminding the United States and South Korea that the North Koreans don't like these joint exercises that the U.S. and South Koreans hold. The other, though, is this fits within the training cycle in North Korea itself. They're in the middle of their summer training exercises, and from the North Korean perspective, you know, they are a small country facing off potentially against the single largest military power in the world.
And it also comes on the heels of these pictures with Kim inspecting a new submarine and calling for bolstering the country's military capabilities. Do you see this as kind of an objective to do these steps to perhaps help with the bargaining when it gets to, you know, dealing with the United States when it comes to denuclearization?
In part. Certainly there is the reminder to the United States that North Korea can't just be ignored away, that something has to be done to resolve the issue so that North Korea effectively can break out of its economic isolation. On the other hand, with or without a nuclear deal with the United States, or the reality is that there's probably not going to be a true rollback of nuclear capabilities, the North Koreans have to find ways to defend themselves. The U.S. and the South Koreans are constantly adjusting their defense pattern. So in part, it is part of the negotiations, and in part, it's part of the regular national self-defense strengthening program of North Korea.
So where do you see things going forward?
I think that this is not going to be seen by the United States overall as a major change by the North Koreans or a major disruptor. The U.S. is likely within the next couple of weeks going to be restarting some level of dialogue with the North Koreans. But the reality is that I think we're at a point where you're not truly having a dialogue about North Korea rolling back and eliminating its existing nuclear capability. It's more about rolling back its ability to expand its nuclear program.
Rodger Baker joining us from Texas. Thanks so much.